Went live early. Love it.
Huh? No, we don't have to wait. We're live right now, I believe. Yeah. Well, welcome to Dude What's the Bid, your weekly live show dedicated to freight and freight tech and rates and all things good. My name is Kevin Hill. Here I'm with Brush Pass Research. As always, Casey Lorcan with Fairlanes saying hi. How's everything going?
Things are going well. Things are going well. It's a happy Thursday around these parts. How about yourself?
Happy Thursday. Everything's going well, entering in the last month of the quarter, it's time to make that drive to hit quotas and all that good stuff. So it's kind of a busy time, right? I mean, we were talking about just a second ago, the Broker Carrier Summit is coming up end of next month, right? With TIA next month as well. So we're starting to enter in conference seasons. So excited about getting it back out on the road a little bit and meeting everybody face to face again and kind of catching up.
Yeah, love that. Conference season certainly in full swing. Getting a lot of out of office email responses, things of that nature. But also an exciting time. I saw 8VC, I think, just launched another fund for $2 million short of $1 billion.
Really?
Yeah.
So wait, 8VC, right? How much did they raise?
$998 million.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. That's a chunk of change.
It's certainly a chunk of change, right? I mean, I guess they've had some great investments, but totally focused on the supply chain and logistics tech space. So it's cool to see, them getting money back out and being able to raise some more funds to pump back into the freight logistics market because I don't know, a lot of innovation.
So the fund is all geared to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the primary focus based on the article I read today on freight waves. But yeah, exciting times.
That is exciting times. It definitely is. So I did a post out on LinkedIn earlier. I am going to throw up here as soon as I share my screen. And it's that time of the month again, where we have month-over-month net new active freight brokerages. And you know what? Things are turning around a little bit here in 2025. So what we have is, it's still about, 9.5% fewer brokerages than this time last year. But there's only on net, right? And that's openings and closures. We have 52 closures, right? So we ran double digits, high double digits. All of last year, I think there was the exact numbers up here somewhere. But for last year, we lost about 3,100 freight brokerages, and we've only lost about 110 over the first 2 months of this year. So you can see the sentiment, right? The directionality of this moving. Still, as I said, almost 10% fewer than last year, but you can see on the graph, the line there, you're starting to see a trough, starting to see a floor and a trough, and maybe it raises back up. And here by probably mid 2025, we'll probably have some positive numbers to share. So good thing for the freight market.
Yeah, certainly. We're looking at that inflection point, I think, a month ago, and wondering whether or not it was an inflection point. It certainly looks like it's
building
back up as opposed to a dead cat bounce, if you will.
Yeah, it's building. So, we have to trend that way. So we'll still be in negative territory for the next few months, probably. But directionally, might be even, might grow some MC numbers this year. But we'll wait and see. But it's going to be better than the onslaught that we've seen of people closing down over the last couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely an interesting thing to think about with capacity coming out. Maybe it's coming back in. Is the demand going to pick up? hopefully it will.
Exactly right. So that is something that the freight market's going to have to figure out on its own on that supply and demand curve. But we're watching it. We'll see what happens. Certainly, everyone's been much more positive for 2025 than certainly for 2024, and I don't think anybody was positive in 2023.
No, certainly not.
Not at all. But yeah, we're going to talk about freight tech today, aren't we?
We are.
Yeah, we're going to talk about freight tech. We're going to talk about open source. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. Early days of a brokerage and building out the tech for that. Here with Garrett Allen. He's the founder of Load Partner. Garrett, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
You bet. So let us hear a little bit about your background, your backstory, kind of how you got into freight and what you're up to right now.
Yeah. So, I've been in the freight world for a little over 10 years now. It's kind of a rare thing, I think, for somebody to be like in the trenches in engineering for over 10 years in this industry. So people are always like skeptical, I think, when I say that. But early career started out at a brokerage out of Cincinnati called Integrity Express Logistics. I was like a really early hire there, hire number 50, somewhere in that range. And basically spent my early career out helping them build out their engineering department, build their TMS, and just helping them scale to a top 25 brokerage. So worked there for, I think, a little over 8 years, maybe 9. When I left, they were making $1 billion a year on that TMS, or 500 people strong. I saw a lot of the pains that go with, that small brokerage scaling to that top spot. There's a lot of chaos in between there.
Right. Was there any thought, sorry to cut you off there. Was there any thought of like not building the TMS and taking something off the shelf or no?
Like back in the day, like when we at Integrity Express, is that what you're asking about?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So, the thing is, when we were building that out, that was like I think it was maybe like 2014 when we really started to get into it. And, the options out there were pretty limited. So up till then, we'd actually already tinkered with building like web portals for customers. And like, we'd actually made a website for our current TMS that interacted with the database to allow brokers to use the TMS from home, like through this like separate portal we had built. That was 2014. That was a long time ago. And people weren't really doing that. So when we were looking at, hey, the company needs a new TMS, we're scaling quickly. We see some of these deals are landing because we can build portals for our customers. They could come in and see stuff. And the TMSs at the time didn't really do all that. So we did, explore at length what are the options. We didn't just jump into it. It was like a whole process. But ultimately ended up on, hey, you know what? Building our own at this stage, we can build it web-based. We know exactly what we need for our teams and for our workflows, and settled on, building out a whole team and building out TMS over the course of, I think total that TMS, it was about 18 months of development from like, let's do it to switching over. So, and that switch overnight was, that was like a hard cut because we also moved over the accounting systems at the same time. So we moved off of QuickBooks to a web-based accounting solution. So that was like a full, all right, you leave tonight and tomorrow at 8 a.m. you come in, the accounting system is different and we're on a new TMS. And it was like sleeping under the desk, waiting for migrations to finish. It was honestly a really fun time, It's like a true startup within the company. We're a really tight-knit team, having a lot of fun, just trying new stuff,
Sounds like a blast.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like I said, we were definitely a bit ahead of the curve building web-based. I remember at the time, TQL was like a big competitor. I mean, still is with IEL. And it was like a few years after we had launched that we started like seeing the postings and hearing the rumors about TQL is going to build a web-based TMS now. And we were like so stoked that it was like, oh, we already, we're ahead of them. Like we did it first. And, again, it's like that startup, really, really gritty, trying to do something cool. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, I did that for, Nick said launched on a Halloween night. Yeah. That's right. Nick was the CTO at the time. I don't know, he was like basically involved. I remember if he was the CTO then or not quite yet, but he ended up being the CTO at IEL, like their first CTO. So he was there with us, and he's my co-founder at Load Partner for background. So that's what we're doing. Doing round 2 now, building a new TMS. So
I remember being a broker back in, I think my first year being a broker is 2012. I did from 2012, 2015, 2016. And there was web-based was not a thing.
Yeah.
Very, very few things were web based back then, and certainly not TMS systems. And it's been weird. The last 10 years have been a huge evolution in TMS systems. Kind of went from nice to have in a lot of cases, to table stakes, right? A must have. And everything is now web based on cloud, all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a huge shift. There's so many options out there today. I think we were talking right before the show, right? It's like every year you almost hear about another TMS that you didn't know existed, and I'm sure that's the reaction to a lot of people when they hear that we're building a TMS at Load Partner.
Well,
they're like, "Wow, okay, another one."
There's if you look at the largest 1,000 brokerages, or really, $10 million or more in gross revenue, they use, and this is proprietary as well, right? So that's lumped into a broad 80 different, almost 80, not quite 80 different TMS systems just in that 1,000 pool. So there are a lot of TMSs out there, from freight forwarder focus to your traditional legacy players out there. But there's a lot. Yeah,
absolutely. And so after Integrity Express, I guess just to complete my background, I went and worked at Transfix for a couple of years as a senior engineering manager. So oversaw their payments team, their customer side operations, and then also their innovation. So got to live in the wonderful world of EDI for a little while there, and then I had a lot of experience with the accounting side of things. So, and then from there we went and launched Load Partner. So, so like I said, at Load Partner we're building a new TMS. I know eye rolls, but bear with me. People asked us through last year to build a TMS many times, and me and my co-founder Nick said never again. We refuse.
Right.
Coming into this year, we started looking at it again, and we kind of saw an opportunity of, hey, if we're going to build a TMS, like we would want it to. There needs to be a reason that we're building a TMS. And through last year, we had a lot of interactions with brokerages that are using a lot of these new TMSs that we're talking about, and finding that they're not really. They're kind of like at the mercy of their vendor, right? Of the TMS provider. A TMS is critical to how a brokerage runs. Workflows get built around what your TMS can support. Teams get hired around where the modules are in the TMS, things like that. And they spend a ton of money on it. And what we found is when they need a new feature or they need an integration, the TMS providers don't always play ball. It's a lot of, hey, we can get on the roadmap in 6 months. We can get you on the roadmap in a year. We're not sure if we're going to do that. And for something so critical to your business, like that can be really impactful. Like that can really hurt to not be able to be flexible. So with Load Partner, we're kind of taking a stab at this and saying like, hey, we don't think, you should own your TMS. You should own your tech stack. You shouldn't be at the mercy of some third party. And so we're building an open source TMS completely in the open, live streaming development, and really kind of like ripping back the curtain and saying like, you want to see how this gets built. You want to see the code. You want to use the code. It's all here for you to use, and kind of changing the dynamic and saying you could own this code. And you don't have to come to us and ask us to do an integration. Sure, we're happy to help out or even do, work to help you do that. But you're free to go do that yourself. Give that to your vendor. They can see the code. They can go write the integration themselves if they want to. There is no gatekeeping involved, and really giving you complete control of your tech stack so that you want to do something different for a certain customer. You're not at the mercy of that TMS vendor to say they're going to do it or not.
It's a real problem. I was just going to say, if you got to get an integration with the TMS providers, right? The way that they view it, in my experience anyways, is you got to have the demand coming from like several of their users saying, hey, we need this specific rate provider integrated or XYZ, whatever it might be, before they, can move you to the top of the list, right? Because at the end of the day, there are a lot of folks that need to integrate or want to integrate into the TMSs. There always seems to be a hot new one every year. But
yeah, and so that's like, obviously being open source, the answer is you could always hire a dev team to work on it. The code's there and available, you can set up yourself, etc. But even taking it a step further, we're building it to be super extensible. So we've talked about, we have this plugin system that we've designed that's going to allow you to, if you have a vendor you really like and they're like, hey, we have a couple customers on Load Partner TMS, they can write a plugin through this really flexible system we've built and expose that to everyone using our TMS. So it's not like, you have to go custom build everything. That vendor, whoever it is, can just build a plugin and expose that to everyone on the system. And kind of imagine it sort of like an app store within the TMS where you can go and pick and choose your vendors and everything just kind of drops in. So even beyond being open source and available, we're also trying to make it so you don't necessarily have to be technical to take advantage of that extensibility and that flexibility.
Is it kind of like a hybrid, in a way, a hybrid proprietary system built on open source software, right? So you can be a little bit more proprietary and custom than you can with something that's off the shelf.
Yeah, I mean, so like the base version of Load Partner TMS will, it's open source. So it's really not proprietary. You can go just spin it up and use it if you want. You can take the code and like tweak it and make your own version of it if you want. Like that's all stuff within. But the idea is that, we kind of build the foundation and you can build on top of it. So if you want to go build a proprietary system and you're like, hey, we have this really niche offering or a customer we want to support that's really weird, like you are able to kind of like what you're getting at, take this open source version and build your own like sort of proprietary version with it, starting from that foundation we've laid out. So it's really trying to target like just, like we talked about before the show again, like the TMS is, a lot of the TMS is 70, 80, 90% of it is the same thing. And there are niches that each of them cover and there's value there. But if you want to go build a TMS, like today, you got to build that 90% first before you get to the stuff that matters. And that's a lot of wasted time, effort, money. And we're building that 90% so you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, you enter in your load, you track your load, it's delivered, the money flows through, hopefully to some financial tool that you're using. And kind of all, and that's what a TMS, the basics of a TMS, right? I mean, that's
right. Absolutely. So we're starting with, like I said, it's completely open source. I actually live stream the development throughout the week so people can tune in and actually watch me building it and ask questions. And that's come up with a couple of things where people have jumped in and like asked me about certain aspects of the TMS. Are you going to do this or that? And not only can I answer, but I can literally pull the code up, show them how we're doing it, show them like live, here's how we're doing it. Or even sometimes like, oh, that's a great idea. Hadn't thought about that. Nobody's mentioned it. Let's go at it. And just right there, at it real time. And I think just like bringing that bar down, like I feel Freight Tech has really kind of had, again, that kind of like curtain, right? Where people don't fully grasp like what is the actual effort that goes into this. Their exposure to it is that TMS vendor that says it's going to take me 6 months to add that button. And so saying like, hey, come jump in. Let me show you how within 30 minutes I can add this button that you need. And now you've seen how you can do it. You can see the code. If you want to go add a second button, like you are now empowered to be able to say, hey, I saw how that got added. I can go do that myself. And you start, sprinkling in AI and the ability of these people that even aren't very technical normally, that can use AI to now help them write code or guide them through adding a plugin, things like that. It just totally changes the dynamic of how you view your tech stack.
It really does. It would be cool, right? If there was a world, a brokerage of the future where, kind of like Google Chrome, where if you're, a guy like myself, I've got a number of different extensions, plugins that I like to use as a sales guy. It'd be great if you had the same experience and you could customize your TMS the same way. Yeah.
And that's what we're building. Like we're really trying to bring that bar down so that's the reality. And we're doing it. Like that's where we're going.
All right. Makes sense. I think it's interesting. I saw Chad Olson post the other day. It was like, we've got one customer, it's taken them, I don't know, however many months to figure out how to map integration for a company they bought, to migrate the data to the old TMS, right, for the buying company. And then he's got another client of theirs at AVRL that, was able to migrate things in less than 24 hours, right, after an acquisition. So it's interesting. I think the data interoperability is going to need to become more and more of a thing for these systems and for the data to do what people would like for it to do, help them with their business. The speed at which you can make these things happen is super critical.
Yeah.
But
right. There's Ryan Joyce with Genlogs. I absolutely love building requests to features within 30 minutes. Awesome stuff, Garrett.
Appreciate it, Ryan.
Good shout.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean, what's up, Ryan? Good to hear from you. But anyways, I was just going to piggyback on that and say, like, I know you mentioned going to see a bunch of brokers. You didn't want to build a TMS. Like, how did you really identify this need? I know we've talked about the integration wait lists, but like, what really made you want to go out and try and do this?
Yeah. So, last year we focused a lot on building AI tooling out for freight brokers. So we have a couple products on there for, especially on track and trace, to help you automate like AI phone calls, SMS. You guys, everybody's seen it at this point. There's a bunch of companies doing this these days. But, in that process last year, again, our background is around TMSs. Like that's a lot of what my career has been. But we're on the other side this time, right? We're building we're an external vendor saying, hey, we got to go integrate with all these TMS systems. And we found that we had a bunch of people that wanted to work with us, loved the tool, that would use it externally. And they're like, we just really need to be integrated and in the system. And we really started to get exposed to these vendors that were just gatekeeping and saying like, maybe they have a connection with another guy that does a similar product. And like, we're going to connect them just because like, we're going to give them the business. And now we lose our customer that we have because their vendors, it's their walled garden, right? And we just realized that that's not how this should be. It stifles innovation where you have these companies trying new things, and it's basically the will of that TMS provider or whoever that primary provider is to decide who gets to get that integration in there, who gets to be like first class to ultimately the customer. Like they just have complete control, and that does impact the customer. It's not just about that external vendor, but also brokerages should have the ability to experiment more. And you look at some of these brokerages that are out there, Ally Logistics, I think, is one that does a great job of trying new things and exposing the things that they're doing. And hey, look at this in automation we built and this new tool we're trying out. And that's where everything should go. Everybody should have the ability to go try all these different tools out and say, hey, does this work? Does that work? Let me see how we can automate a workflow without having to be sucked into what is your TMS's ideal workflow. And you're chained to that. And so, again, looking at 25 is what do we want to do? If we're going to build a TMS, what are we doing? It's we need to enable brokerages to actually innovate, try new things, own that tech. And really, we feel it's going to push the whole industry forward. It's bigger than just us. It's about giving, these small players the ability to try new things and actually connect with that customer, and also give the brokerages the ability to try new things themselves and improve their own workflow. So yeah, I mean that was the big things for us. Is if we're gonna build another TMS, like I said, everybody sees the 100 new TMSs every year. So we want to do something that's never been done, and nobody's ever built an open source TMS for freight brokers. And so that's what we're doing, and we're turning the knob to 11, and live streaming it and just making it sound crazy. It's you're live streaming the development. Your source code is out there. People are watching you write code. Yep, all of the curtains are gone. Come check it out. Let me know what you think.
So when and where can our audience tune in to a live stream of you coding?
Yeah, so I live stream on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. That's on my LinkedIn. Or no, sorry, not on my LinkedIn. It's on my YouTube, my X Twitter account, and then on Twitch. So on my Garrett_makes personal account is where I do all my live streams. And then on our official channels for Load Partner, again, YouTube, that's actually our LinkedIn as well on that one. And Twitter X, we do project update videos every couple weeks where we'll go over what we've built, where the status is, what's the roadmap, and kind of tease different features and things like that.
Is most of your audience tech people from freight brokerages?
It's a bit of a mix. Yeah, I mean, so there's some brokers that tune in, especially brokers that are interested in AI. They're messing around with Grok, building little apps on the weekends. That crowd loves seeing this because they're all pumped because they see this plugin system we're building, and the open source code is there, and they're like, I can't wait to get my hands on this and spend some time on the weekend building features in that I can just do that. And so they that audience especially is definitely pumped about the live stream, being able to hang out and see it. And then also obviously technical people from the freight industry coming and seeing how things are done. We talk about different topics the Safer API and things it's missing, or how do you get a key? What's the API look like? How do you do a lookup on a carrier through that API? And it's all live stream. We do it right there. We talk about the problem. We say, hey, this would be a cool thing. Maybe we could do something here in the future. And we just kind of, we've been step by step, iteratively building this TMS out and kind of showing all the problems along the way.
So I've been trying all week, in spare moments, right? I've been trying to do this with AI, with ChatGPT, right? It said to write a Python code to scrape some websites. And for whatever reason, I still haven't figured it out, but I'm getting closer and closer, right? But it's just, I don't even have to write the code. I'm just having AI write the code, but I still, to get it to run and store and save and everything, there's always some little hiccup that I keep running into. But I'm getting closer.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to write these little apps with AI as well.
Yeah, and a lot of people are, and we want to support those people right now. Again, like with their current TMS, it's like you can build what you want on the weekend, but when you come in Monday, like that's not going to really hook into your workflow. It's going to be an external thing you're using on the side, right? It's like we want to enable you to say like, hey, here's a guide. Here's how you can, like, this is how the code sort of needs to be formatted to build a plugin for Load Partner TMS. And if you've got a cool idea, build a plugin with AI's help, follow our guide, throw it into our marketplace for plugins, and now a bunch of other people can use your code too. And now you've published essentially an app within Load Partner TMS with the help of AI, and you've never written code. You just used AI and figured it out.
Yep.
Brokers have the best ideas about how a TMS should work. It's not programmers like me. It's not product managers. It's the people using the system, giving them the ability to actually build features and build the workflows they want first class right there with AI, and then expose that to other people. That's the world I want, and that's what we're building.
So theoretically, right now, could anybody, but let's say a broker, build an app with an AI, build the plugin as well, right? But maybe you don't need, because you don't really need API. It's more of just a plugin, kind of like I can't think of what's the company that Zapier, right? Almost,
yeah,
like Zapier, like build an app and be able to connect it to Load Partners TMS.
Yeah, so
can that theoretically be done, whether it's a good idea or not, depending on the app and kind of what it'll do. But it's that theoretically, could you do that?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. So a good example is like, say, you've got some, there's these different carrier vetting tools, for example, right? And let's say you're a broker and you're like, oh man, I use this one carrier vetting tool, but the integration's not there. And like, I wish it was. And I want to add a tab to my carrier page to like have a, whatever that vendor is, click it and it pulls it up, right? With our plugin system, a broker could go to, ChatGPT, Grok, Claude, whatever their choice is, and say, hey, I want to build an integration to this company. Here's what their API kind of looks like. Maybe pull the docs from like their whoever. And that AI could generate code following our plugin schema, which is like, where we'll like define like how, like where you put certain things, and literally add a tab to their carrier page that's like that vendor title. They click it, it opens a page. It's got their information, does the lookup. Like that's 100%, but it's possible.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, that is.
Yeah. So it's a new world, like AI and the ability of like the people on the ground floor to be able to like build features and code. It's just, I think it's not fully realized yet. And it's going to be really cool.
It is not fully realized yet. And, but it is cool. It is cool. I got one of these scripts to work, and for some reason, I'm not setting up correctly. It'll give me directions on how to run it and install it and everything, but something always happens. But I'll get there very soon. It'll be the start of many things, I'm sure, because if you can just create it on your own, it's very empowering, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, that's what, like I said, like I talk to all these brokers these days that like they're building such cool stuff on the weekends, like these little apps and these ideas, and like, oh, it'd be cool if it do this thing. It's like, nobody's doing that, and like sometimes it is like a really small little feature that it's like it's not big enough for somebody to really like make it a product, but like, man, it would help them every day. It's like that just kind of doesn't go anywhere. It's like that we want that stuff to go into Load Partner TMS through a plugin. Like it's perfect.
Nice. Well, with that, I have to split because I have a board meeting for the Broker Carrier Summit, which is coming up April 28th in Indianapolis. If you haven't signed up yet, go sign up now. meet us all in Indianapolis? Are you going to be there, Garrett?
No, but I'm trying to convince my co-founder to go. So call out Nick. Tell me he's got to go.
Nick, yeah.
Come on, Nick.
You gotta go. You gotta go, man. You gotta go. So, yeah, April 28th to May 2nd is, I believe, the exact dates of it. So, but I got to scram for that. You guys have fun. Garrett, great talking to you, and see you soon.
See ya.
See you, Kev. You'll figure it out with the code. You got this.
I know, right? I'll do it. I'll do it.
Only way out is through. See you, man.
How about you? Have you been writing code with AI?
I've been playing with Grok a little bit recently. I played with the ChatGPT APIs when they came out a couple of years ago to do some prospecting and things like that. But no, I was just going to ask you, like, are you guys leveraging any of the open source AI stuff like a TensorFlow to build on, or what is your favorite AI to build so far, build the TMS on so far?
Yeah, so I use Cursor for development. This is actually, if you've heard of Cursor, it's basically a code editor that has AI sort of baked into it, and you can pick different models. I was a really late adopter. Everybody told me I should have been using it last year, and I didn't because I used Copilot. And so I finally was like, all right, let me try Cursor out. I did it on stream actually, so there's like a recording of this. So like today I'm gonna switch over to Cursor. We're gonna try it out. And I was like, oh yeah, this thing is like 10 times better. Like I'm so stupid. I'm like way late to the game now, and it's so good. So I use Cursor now, but I use Anthropic Claude 3.7 these days is my preferred coding model. I'd say that's probably my number one, followed by probably Gemini, honestly. Gemini 2.0, I'm a big fan of. Like the Gemini 2.0 is pretty good. I was also late to that one. Everybody told me Gemini is great. I said it's Google. Their AI sucks so far. But then I tried it and I was like, this thing's incredible. Again, I'm late. So those are kind of my two go-tos right now. I'd say Gemini 2.0 is like my day-to-day AI generally. I've got an Android, so it's actually like built in like the assistant. So I can just like say the word, it pops up, and it's got a real-time voice, so I can actually talk to it, which is really cool. And then Claude is my favorite for like coding tasks.
Okay, yeah, I've seen some crazy stuff that people have been able to code on the new 3.7. It's wild. People just like sit down and build a brand new like zombie apocalypse video game in like a couple hours and play with it on Twitter. But
yeah,
anyways, seems to be a really brave new world here, and I'm excited about it. Anyways, what it means for transportation and logistics. But how are you guys going about getting folks on the TMS? Are there folks on the TMS right now? Is it something that people can go out and use? It sounds like people are building on it already.
So we're officially launching our version 1 in April. So we've been working on it for a couple months now. We're targeting sort of like that V1 for April. So that'll be, the way we view it is really the bare bones TMS. You can run through a load. You can record against, your carriers or customers, record facilities, drivers, do some basic accounting functionality. It's really going to be targeted mostly towards, you're a small broker, like a solo broker, and you need a system. This would be a great offering for you. It's all iterative, obviously, right? We're building on top of that. So that's when we'll be launching like our version 1. Before then, we've had a lot of people that are just, giving us feedback, trying it out, being in the live streams, giving us feedback there. So again, with like kind of like the plugin system, right? Like building on top of it, we've been talking to different brokers about what kind of functionality they'd want to add, technical people about what kind of like accessibility they would want in like that interface kind of a layer, and just designing it out, building it, etc. So nobody's using it today. In April, we'll be launching our version 1, and we'll tag V1 probably. And so like the code will be out there, and obviously you can spin it up yourself. We have really simple setups. It's actually like, I think Nick can correct me if I'm wrong. I think right at the moment, you can launch your own TMS instance with load partner TMS in like 3 or 4 button clicks. It's like actually that simple. And it's like $7 a month. That's like you host it yourself. Or, we're going to also be offering hosting through us. So we'll have like a SaaS offering. So if you're like, hey, we just want to use load partner TMS, we don't want to deal with any of this infrastructure setup, you could just come on and like create an account like you would any other, SaaS product. So that'll be our first release in April. We'll have those out.
Okay, very cool. And I guess I'm just checking now. Looks like you have been. I'm glad to see it. You've been playing around in the Lost Freight tech channel.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're in there. We're in Lost Freight. We also have our own load partner Discord. So we have a decent number of tech guys in there, especially. But yeah, I know Reed pretty well. He was actually one of the inspirations for me to go start load partner over a year ago now. So, shout out Reed for sure.
That's awesome. We had him on the show a while back. It was actually the day he accepted the job to go work for Truck Parking Club. But total character. Funny enough, he actually worked with my cousin back in the day at Echo. I think they were brokering loads together. But anywho, does seem like an exciting time. Another guy I sent your way, I think, was Ken Apple. He's Mariner Logistics. They're doing some of their own things, but he's super excited. Another industry guy to hear that, people are starting to think about open source. Said, right? I mean, like, it's a pretty sticky, old, stuffy industry sometimes where people have been using the same systems and operating the same way. And I've heard at least one person mention to me anyways, open source, like, are we really ready for that in this industry? Is that even possible? So, have you had any pushback, any detractors? What would you say to them?
Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure. I would say the way I view this is, we are truly trying to change the way the industry considers freight tech, the way you look at freight tech in general, make it less of a mystery, more of a grounded in reality, what it is, and giving that accessibility to everybody. And a lot of people have said, open source isn't going to work. Brokers don't want to deal with their own tech. They just want to pay for the solution. We've kind of heard it all, obviously. Not surprising. We're doing something completely different. So that's kind of comes with the territory, right? And hey, they're not wrong. A lot of brokers don't want to deal with the tech. But that's why we're going to offer a hosted version. If you want to get it, you want to just create an account and like use it in the web and not have to deal with it, that's an option. The cool thing with our approach is that we can support everything. You want to install it locally on your servers in your building because you have to have your data that never leaves the building. You can do it. If you want to put it in the cloud, we can help you do that. If you want to, fork it yourself and put a dev team on it to tweak it and make it your own, you can do it. There is no downside. It just is going to make it easier for everyone to use the TMS and make it easier for them to tweak it for where they want to go. And I think, as far as like, is the industry ready for it? I don't know. I think so. I think realistically, we're at sort of I think we are slowly. I don't think it's probably going to be an overnight thing. It's not going to be like one day we realize it flipped over. But we're sort of at a changing of the guard a little bit, I think, in what technology is in this industry. And, I don't think a lot of people are looking forward enough into what is the role of technology in a brokerage in 15 to 20 years from now. Everybody's like, what is a brokerage in 15 to 20 years? I think brokerages will still exist, but I think that the role technology plays is going to be very different. And I don't think brokerages are going to be as happy to have 15 vendors that like kind of control their workflows in 10, 15 years. I think they're going to want more control because, hey, they're more technical now. AI is helping them write code themselves. People that are on the ground floor don't have to go to a product manager, go to an engineer, get it on the roadmap, wait 3 months. They can go to Grok and say, hey, I need a button. Cool. Here it is. Throw it in. That's the future. And nobody's doing that except for us. And so, yeah, hey, people say they don't want to deal with tech, but I think that the reality is everyone's getting more and more technical. And maybe they don't want to deal with like the hosting and the infrastructure, but people want to be able to control the software that they're working with.
I think some people do though, and they will need to. So, I mean, it's a great point. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I heard a story the other day. I mean, how do you think about load boards? Because I know some of them, they charge an arm and a leg and make you put up a stand at the conference and things like that. How do you connect like the TMS to the freight? Are they scared of guys like you?
I think at the end of the day, like, I don't think that they care as much about us because like we're not necessarily building a load board. Like, sure, we're probably going to have like an internal load board or some kind of a load board offering in the future that's like a plug-in or an extension. But when you look at like a DAT, truck stop, these massive load boards, like the value they have is a lot of that network effect of that's where people go to find freight. That's where trucks are. we're not going to like magically have all the trucks on a load partner platform. If anything, we're just going to make it easier for them to, put plugin integration in, be more entwined with a TMS instead of having to like deal with some big provider that they've got to like get their dev teams to connect and like figure out on the roadmap again, all that stuff. It's like they can just go in and build what they need. So, I think reality is most of the tech vendors in the space, like the only people that really seem like they're threatened by us are other TMS providers, but everybody else is like, this is awesome. I can't wait to be able to like make a plugin or just like go in there and tweak what I want. Like, this is great. So yeah.
Definitely. It's really interesting, right? I mean, like Moore's law is not slowing down anytime soon. So like, any bureaucracy or layers that you have in an organization that kind of prohibits you from getting the things done that you need to have done in an efficient and timely manner, right? I think are probably really going to separate the wheat from the chaff as we move forward, right? Like you're not going to have a choice but to put yourself in a position to be able to, adapt more quickly,
yeah,
every day moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, you think about too, like the whole argument of like, brokers not wanting to be technical and everything. It's how many proprietary TMSs do you know of? Because I know of a bunch,
Right.
and that's going off the deep end on being technical. Like not only hosting yourself, you're building yourself. Like, so I mean, I don't think it always holds true.
As high as like 50 or 60% of the top 100 have like built their own TMS to some extent, and a lot of them have 3 or 4 different TMSs as well for different functions that they have within the logistics business. So it doesn't seem like it's as efficient as it could be.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I mean, you think about too, like right, like long term with load partner TMS being open source and having as more and more people, adopt it and start building onto it, building plugins, like everybody sort of benefits. That knowledge base of how does load partner TMS work, or like what's the best plugins, or these different things. Like that's stuff that now this community shares, they build together, and that's bigger than us. It's bigger than me writing code. It's bigger than like load partner itself. It's like community being able to prop each other up with like, this works really well, this doesn't, this is a plugin I wrote that's awesome. You think of like, again, like that Ally Logistics of the world that's out there and like trying new things and hey, this worked super well. Instead of it being like, well, what's your tech stack? We got to move to, X TMS, blah, blah, blah. It's like, hey, like load partner TMS open source. If you're on that, you can just pull in the plugins that they liked. And now you've got their workflow pulled in. Right. And so again, I think that's where things are going to go is these people that are, on the ground floor, moving the freight, like those are the people that are going to be actually pushing this forward, not engineers in the back office writing code based on what the third person in the telephone game is telling them.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. If you don't like the stuff people have built already, you've got the basis to just build what you need for yourself there. So outside of TMS, what other tech are you seeing being built right now in the realm of freight tech that you think is cool or you're excited about?
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird time, I think, in freight tech. Last year was crazy. Like the last 2 years were kind of crazy, right, with AI. I think I'm gonna start by answering the opposite question, which is I think that there's like a lot of like AI X coming out, and it seems like a lot of people that had interesting ideas are pivoting into like AI voice, AI text. Like there was somebody just the other day that was asking me about like an automation that they needed. And I was like, oh yeah, like I know somebody that's doing this. And like I pulled their company up and I was like, never mind, they're doing AI voice now. Like they pivoted apparently. And it's just like every day. So I think what's going to happen realistically is I think like the AI voice stuff will consolidate long term. It's a bit of a race to the bottom. Tokens are getting cheaper, providers are getting better. The access to the technology is getting really good. I think we'll end up with a couple of major players in the space that just do a really good job, that have really awesome workflows that people like. That's probably where it's going to land. But I think some of the people in that space and the workflows that they are building are very cool. I don't think we're quite to the point of like AI is just, running freight and being like, cool, let me know in a week how it goes. We're not quite there, but there's a lot of automations and like, especially things where like AIs are doing multi-step processes of answering phone calls, leaving notes, handing a call off to somebody else, or sending a message to get a confirmation. I think that those are very cool. Kind of like, again, tweaking it into more of like that full range workflow rather than just AI voice plastered on top. So I'm looking forward to more and more of that, like seeing how people can use AI more than just surface level, but like really ingraining it into like a larger workflow, and how they can automate that. Also, I'm a big fan of Genlogs. I know Ryan was in here earlier. Ryan's great, but I love what they're doing. I think they're kind of doing something that's kind of crazy and different. Yeah, and I love that. You know, when I first heard about what they're doing, I was like, you're just taking that data that's like in the cloud, and people are gatekeeping and just saying like, fine, we'll get it ourselves. And like, I love that. Like, it's so cool.
Visibility has been the hot topic in freight tech for like 10 years.
Yeah,
and nobody had thought to use cameras to capture the data. It was through cell phones, through tracking devices on trailers, on trucks, stuff in yards or at facilities. But like, yeah, it took somebody from outside the industry to come in with a totally new perspective. It's interesting.
Yeah, no, yeah, totally. It is. It's but I love that stuff, right? Like that, just completely changing the way people look at it. It's just so cool. So I think we're kind of like, again, we're just kind of in a weird spot where the AI buzzword, you can raise a lot of money, you can make a lot of like deals short term, and I think we're not past like the puppy dog phase right yet, where people are starting to really get wild with it and like try different stuff. So I'm looking forward to when it kind of dies down a little bit, honestly, because I think we'll see more innovation come out when people start realizing they've got to do something different. So I think maybe like another year or two. I think it could be like literally another year or two before we really see that happen, though.
I mean, yeah, it's you can't put the cart before the horse, right? I think a lot of infrastructure, technologically in space, just doesn't lend itself to a lot of this, Web3 technology, which I think can really catapult the industry forward.
Yeah.
Right.
I think like one of the big shifts we're seeing with AI, and specifically with like the models, is actually unifying, right, multimodal. So that's where basically like the AI model is able to do written text, voice, images, like everything in one. And that's one of the reasons why I really like Gemini 2.0, is because it's really good at that. Like the voice is really fast, it can understand images, it's just like everything in one. It's what you would expect. It's like a person, right? You can like talk to it, you can message it. And I think as that technology gets better, like that'll unlock more stuff where you can really start getting into more of that true AI assistant that's like a person sitting next to you. You can ask it to do things where it can kind of make a call, send a text, look at a picture. I think we're realistically a little ways out still from that being like approachable enough to really like drop it in everywhere. I could be wrong. I don't know, just based on what I'm seeing. But I do think that'll be one of the big unlocks for kind of seeing that next generation of like the AI companies kind of coming out. But there are, like I said, there are still interesting things being worked on today in AI, no doubt. But I feel like we're definitely in like the stepping stone phase. So,
right, it hasn't reached that kind of asymptotic up and to the right.
Yeah,
that I think everybody is either waiting for or skeptical of. But
yeah, I think visibility is interesting too. I guess there's not really anyone specifically that I think it's like doing something that's like amazing in the space. There are like plenty of good players out there, but I think visibility has been seeing a lot of change, especially with AI and being able to do AI phone calls and like look at the dots on the map and have insights there. But it just feels like it's in flux a little bit. Like it feels like visibility. I mean, obviously we've got gen logs, which is but I'm talking like truly like minute to minute. Like where's that truck? Is it going to be on time? Like a little bit more of that. And I think besides like gen logs, nobody else is really doing anything crazy there. And I feel like there's still something there. I don't know what it is, but it just feels like everybody's trying to solve that problem still. And there's like new companies again. Like, whenever you see like all the new companies popping up trying to solve like an area, I feel like that that there's like something there, even if none of them are quite figuring it out yet. So that's an area that I think in the next few years we'll see something else wild come out of that to help with like the more like that minute by minute. Like instead of using whatever macro point or something like that, something else is what you use.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. And depending on the perspective, right? If it's you're the shipper and you're moving Nestle crunch bars or something like that. It's a different definition to you. You care about different things than the broker's got a different definition of visibility, right? Because he wants visibility to answer the questions for Nestle to say, hey, yes, it's going to be where you need it to be by, Friday, like we agreed to, or, maybe it's not. And visibility, I think, means something else as well for carriers. I was listening to, I can't remember his first name, but the Cole Stevens on the Freight Pod talking about, how they've gotten a lot better about what visibility means to them and solving for that problem. It's like they've got a lot more trailers than they do tractors. So knowing where the trailer is and what the status is of that is super critical. You may have 3 or 4 different truck drivers on a load. So it's just kind of interesting to think about, like, what is visibility and what does it mean? But yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe there is a world with, AI where, I love your take on this. Like, can you create that network effect with the AI information from communications that people are having with these trucks to know where the trucks are, right? Know where trucks need to go and kind of solve for the, deadhead problem, right? The asset utilization problem, which I think, I don't know, is one of the benefits, I guess, of answering the transparency question.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the calculations on, utilization and routing, that's just always I think it's gonna be an iterative thing. I don't think it's gonna be one of those where like one day like a tech comes out that like all right, we figured it out. I think everybody's gonna keep like tweaking their models. It's gonna slowly get better and improve. I do think there's some interesting things around intelligence at the equipment level, where if you think about a lot of the AI we have today, it's more of like on the broker side, right? Where it's like sending a call to the driver and like, are you going to be on time? I think having the flip side of that would be interesting, exploring like if you had tracking on a truck or a trailer and there was like a level of analysis happening on that side where when it's going to be late, like it's able to identify and reach out to a broker and say like, here's the ETA, or like there's a change in load status, and not like not like a 10-minute update, right? Like where it's like, oh, here's my location every 10 minutes, but more of like an anomaly detection where it's actually able to say, based on location, I know the ETA is going to be here. I'm going to be late. So now I need to message the broker. And so you don't have to like check it every 10 minutes or anything like that. But it just like gives a little bit more privacy to like the carrier side while still giving the broker all he needs of like, when something goes sideways, I need to know. So I think there's like something there that would be interesting. I hope somebody builds something in that space someday because it'd be really cool. But yeah, I mean, I think AI itself, I don't know that it's like the just the solution necessarily to like, routing and making it like high performance or efficiency.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Anywho, so going back to like your time at Transfix, I remember when I was at FreightWaves, Transfix was hot, LoadSmart was hot, Convoy was hot, right? It was all the digital DFM rage. I know they're doing something different now, which is cool. But what do you kind of take away from your time there that was, a lesson or a headache that, has kind of positioned you guys to dance around here moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember what any of the numbers were or anything, but Transfix did a really good job of like automating a lot of freight. Automating tenders, automating scheduling processes, trying to like minimize touches to shipments was like a big piece of the work we did there. And I think, maybe there's not any one thing necessarily out of that that's like I would call out, but just that, I think people underestimate like how far they were going and like how automated some of those shipments were. There was a lot of cool like tricks and things like that they would do to just minimize touches, basically automations around things like you think about an accessorial and like what shippers are going to approve what types of accessorials to what amounts that we can then automatically approve to a carrier when they need it, and then like what needs review and some of those things that I think a lot of people are just like, oh, we just would always like maybe some guy knows that, or they just go in and check or whatever. It's like just kind of like tribal knowledge that people know in most brokerages. I think that, at Transfix, I could go pull a shipper up and like see what kind of accessorials that they would generally accept and for what reasons. And, if the carrier needed that, we could just, cool, it's good. We know the shipper will be fine with this. We'll just check it off and shoot the message out and like, it'll be fine. Because they just have that kind of level of data. And I think that just some of that stuff, again, not to like say there's a specific thing there, but just like generally that level of automation and like understanding how that data can like flow in and you can learn from it and automate. It's just really cool. It's like, that's stuff that more people should have access to. And I think that's, again, kind of like even beyond just AI automatically doing things, you don't necessarily need AI to do that.
Information, right? Just the right information. It's interesting. It takes me back to a conversation we had with Omar Singh, who runs Surge Transportation. And he just launched a startup, I think, a rate making startup to help set up a rate engine through, I guess, EDI for big shippers. But when he was growing Surge, kind of the takeaway he had, like, you got to read page 18 on the agreement with the new customer, right? You've got to know the information about how to bill the customer, what the terms are, et cetera, so you don't get out over your skis. And, they scaled so quickly without recording that information that, you're not keeping up with the carriers. So you don't know your service levels are dropping. And, you think you've got this money in the bank, but at the end of the day, you really don't, because you didn't have all the information that you needed to move that freight successfully and get paid for it.
Yeah. People, from my experience, people are very quick to accept that this is life and, this is just how it has to be done. A lot of that manual work of, splitting an invoice here, this advance needs to be on a separate invoice. This one can be sent on one invoice, like all that stuff. That's just how it has to be. It's like, we can actually, like, you don't have to do, like, we can build something to do that. And think about how many hours you save, especially at scale, to not have to do that for any shipments. And I think that's, again, kind of just big takeaways from Transfix was like looking at those things, with, really thinking about how do you solve this? Like, it's not taking it at face value.
Right. No. Cool. Great answer. I got one more for you if you got the time.
Yeah, let's hear it.
What do you think the brokerage of tomorrow looks like? Let's define that as like 10 years from today. We're looking at the top 100 brokers in existence today. Are there any new ones? How many people, working in those organizations? How much revenue per employee you think they're generating? I think the magic number these days is like getting close to 2 million per person. But yeah, what do you think it looks like?
First of all, I'm definitely not qualified to give you numbers on what I think the top freight brokerages will be in 10 years. I totally would be a guess, but I do think there's a trend towards more individualism as far as there's like the two models, right? It's like cradle to grave and like Chicago model, silo, whatever, like the two big ones. Most of my experience is cradle to grave, but I've also worked in some silo model situations. And I think we're seeing a trend. This is my asterisk, my opinion. But towards more, freight agents, like that's been kind of a hot thing the last couple of years, and like more individual brokers. And I know a lot of people say that brokerages are going to consolidate and we're going to have like mega brokerages and like there's just going to be 50 brokerages and that's it. I actually think it's going to go the other direction. And the reason for that is, again, with individuals are getting more empowered, not less. And an individual can now use AI to get help setting their brokerage up, help doing responses to things. Well, they don't need all the back office support technology that a brokerage typically is providing a broker. And so I think we're actually going to see more individuals that are trying to start their own brokerages, or more smaller brokerages just in general, or more freight agent approaches, et cetera. And so I think the future looks like a lot more ad hoc brokers figuring it out with AI and doing it their way and finding a niche and just like, hey, having a killer job where it's like, I just work for myself and I run freight and I use all these tools to automate my communications and my life's great. So, I think that's the future we're headed towards, not necessarily giant brokers.
I love it, man. Yeah, I mean, the barrier to entry is not as high as it, once was, right? You can go get the tools that, may level the playing field with, the big boys out there, the C.H. Robinsons, the TQLs, the billion-dollar brokerages who have so much data, so much information in their systems that can be hard to compete. But I don't know. It's very interesting to think about.
Yeah.
I kind of love it.
Yeah. I think, I think the reason I'm excited for it is, again, kind of like going back to earlier, I think that having that smaller broker being able to try new things, have less bureaucracy, less red tape, that's where we get the most innovation and find new things that work awesome. And so I think that's the future I'm pulling for, and I hope we get there because I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, man. Moving fast and breaking shit. I think it's the way that things should be.
Yeah.
If they can be. But anyways, taking an hour out of your afternoon, Garrett, but really appreciate the time. Anything else you want to hit on while we have each other?
No, I appreciate you having me on. If you're interested in watching the live streams, anybody, feel free to check us out. Garrett_makes on Twitter, X, or on YouTube or Twitch. That's where I do like the live streams. You can also find loadpartner.io is our website for Load Partner itself. And then we've got the typical LinkedIn, X, Facebook, all the socials. So feel free to follow us on there, stay in the loop, and come hang out on a dev stream and ask questions.
Sweet, man. Love it. Yeah, go find Garrett. We'd love to have you back on when the product's released in April or whenever it makes sense. Love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, everybody. Peace.